Welcome to another episode of the Protect the Dream Project. It is now, well, by the time you see this anyway, it'll be 2023. Maybe 2022, but more like 2023. And it's time to do something different. A lot of you are choosing your resolutions and trying to figure out, what am I going to do for 2023? I want to do something different. Maybe I'll quit my job and become a podcaster and make a whole lot of money, just like that guy, Joe Rogan. But what is the reality? What is the reality of podcasting? That's what we're here to find out today. So I have an awesome guest. His name is Kevin Palmieri, who's going to be joining us. I hope I pronounced that. Kevin is the CEO and co-host of Next Level University, and we are going to talk about the realities of making a living with podcasting. So before we do that, let me tell you a little bit what the Protect the Dream Project is. We are a resource to help you move forward, to guide you, to inspire you, and to help you get to that next point in your life through the hills and valleys, and help you build a process to deal with the struggles and to inspire you and move forward. So, introducing my guest, Kevin Palmieri. How are you this morning, Kevin?
I am doing very well, my friend. I appreciate you having me, and let's start the new year strong, or let's start the previous year, or let's end the previous year strong. Whatever it is, wherever we're dropping this episode, we will try to bring some energy. Exactly.
So, Kevin, the reason I have you here is because, I've done a little research, and Kevin, you have been a pretty successful guy in the podcasting space. Now, according to what I've seen, it tells me that you're making about $1 million a year in podcasting business. My question to you, is that possible? Is that really possible for the average guy to be able to do that? Ooh, got some background going on.
Yeah, of course. As a podcaster, one of the key things is to have a quiet backdrop. In New Hampshire, we had some really bad windstorms over the last couple of days, and now they're cutting down the trees outside of my house. So my apologies for that, Mark.
That's okay.
So I just want to be transparent. We are not at the stage where we are making $1 million a year yet. Our projection is to make $1 million next year. We made 300-ish thousand this year. So I want to make sure I put that out there. For the average person, it's probably not that attainable, honestly. And here's why. Because many of us start a podcast from a place of, a podcast is a sexy thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's a wave that I want to be on. But not many of us are starting podcasts because we actually understand the potential and how to build a business underneath. Many of us want to take the Joe Rogan stance, and we want to get a lot of listens, and then we want to get sponsors. Right. For most of us, that's not how you're going to end up making money. So I would say, as long as you go into it with the right expectation, you have a higher likelihood of being able to monetize, is what I would say.
Okay, fair enough. But even where you say you are right now, that to me is a significant level of success in the podcast business. Now, as someone is essentially, in my second year of doing this, let's be transparent and lay it on the table. Where did you start? Where did you start your business? How did you get into podcasting? What made you say, yeah, this is what I want to do?
It's interesting. I was actually interviewed on a YouTube channel, and my buddy, who is now the CEO of our company, so I'm the CFO, he's the CEO, he had me on his show, and we talked about fitness and mindset for like an hour and a half. After we finished, I said, imagine if you could do that for a living. And one of my other buddies was there with us, and he said, well, you can. There's podcasts, there's people who do this for a living. So I ended up having that in my mind. Then I ended up buying the equipment a few weeks later. And then I just started. I researched, how do you start? How do you do an intro? How do you do an outro? What equipment do you need? And then from there, I just fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the fact that you can just jump in front of a microphone and talk to people that you may never meet. And it's just this very interesting opportunity that I never really expected to be doing. And I think the other thing too is I've always wanted to help people. I think we all want to help other humans at some level. We just usually don't know what the vehicle is. So for me, when I found the vehicle, I said, wow, if this is something I can do consistently, I would be really happy. I'd be really fulfilled. And I think I'd be growing a lot. And who doesn't want to grow a lot?
So your podcast, let's talk about growth. You're probably, from my research on you, you've said you've done a lot of different things in your life. I guess from construction to a lot of different things. how has your podcast how's your podcast melded with those things? I mean, your past experience into your podcast. Are you using that for coaching? Like, how did you move from that to podcasting? Other than just saying, okay, it's interesting. But I mean, what are the things that kind of glue it all together?
Yeah, I would say number one is consistency. That is something I learned throughout my life with the various different weird or random jobs that I had. Was if you are a consistent human being, you will get more opportunities than other people. I was never necessarily the smartest person at my companies or the jobs I was doing, but I usually was one of the more consistent ones. So that's part of it. I think the second thing is just the pure work ethic that it takes to grow something like this. This Christmas, so I took Christmas off where I didn't do anything. I didn't work at all. And I can count those days on two hands over the last 6 years. The number of days I've taken off is it's less than 10. So that's been a long thing, and it's been a lot of work that I don't think people really, really take into effect. So those are a couple things. But honestly, Mark, I think the thing that really has set us apart is our ability to connect with our audience. I've always been a person who just wanted to be a real person. I don't want to be inaccessible. I don't want you to not be able to reach out to me. I don't want to be too busy to do my DMs. That is something that set us apart. Is we started from a human standpoint of, look, you're a human listening to us. We're a human on the microphones. What if we can connect with you at a deeper level? That would be beneficial to us and for you. And I think that's something that set us apart. Is we have talked to hundreds of our listeners at this point. Hundreds. And whether it's Zoom, whether it's through DM, whether it's through text message, we have a really good pulse on our audience. And I think that really, really has helped us. So just treating a human being like a human being, that's something that I've learned in all my other experiences and occupations. So that carries over really well.
So when you're thinking about getting into podcasting and you referenced this earlier, thinking that, okay, well, it's just a matter of getting the listeners and getting sponsors and whatnot and what have you. What are the other potential sources to monetize? Like, it really comes down to the money, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you want to do something that's going to at least provide you with some kind of income to at least maintain the cost of running the podcast, because it's not free, right?
Right.
So how would you approach the monetization side of it? That's really what it boils down to. How do I make money with this thing?
Yeah. So this is my frame. And it's weird. It kind of breaks the paradigm. The best way for you to make money is most likely not the way the top of the charts are making their money. So it's almost like we see the Joe Rogans, we see the Barstools, we see whoever it is out there, and we say, okay, we got to do what they do in order to make money. When in reality, they are the minority. They are the anomalies. So this is what I always suggest. And I would say the same thing to you, Mark. If your podcast is about solving a problem, it's about solving your audience's problems, what you have to do to monetize is you have to solve those problems in a more specific and valuable way in exchange for funds. So simple. One-on-one coaching, group coaching, online courses, live events, retreats, books. That is how I have seen monetization work the best. So for us, we have done all of our monetization through either one-on-one coaching, group coaching, retreats, live events, courses. That's it.
So a podcast is more of would you say more of an ancillary product to a main business, or you'd say that?
Yeah, it's an opportunity to connect and add topical value to your audience. Because so this is the thought. If you have a good podcast that has really good specific episodes appropriate for your audience, they're going to want more. They're going to want more value. They're going to want more of your time. So then you say, okay, well, in this episode, I can only go so deep on podcasting because contextually, only so many people are at a certain level where I can say something that will resonate. But the deeper you go in the business, the more you can dig into depth. And when you're digging into depth, you're digging into deeper tactics and more specific. So the podcast at the top is where you are connecting with your audience and you're adding value. Then you figure out, okay, what are the problems that my audience has that I can solve at a deeper level? So if you have a leadership podcast, you can do leadership coaching. If you have a health and wellness podcast, you can do virtual personal training. And if you think of it that way, your job on the podcast is to add value to your listeners' problems. And at the bottom of your business, it's to solve their problems. It's very hard to solve problems on a podcast, right? You can give ideas, you can give tactics, you can give deeper understanding, but it's almost like it's the first layer. It's the first book in a series of books. And the deeper you go into the business. And I think that's a good way to look at it.
What was this is a little bit more a left turn. What was your greatest success in doing your podcast, and what were your greatest failures? I don't like to use the word failure, but or the greatest valley. Let's use the word valley in your business.
The greatest valley, number one in the beginning was being just extremely broke. I mean, when I left my job and went full time into this, we didn't make money for a year and a half or 2 years. So I was living on credit cards and living in credit card debts. That was just a circumstantial one. We ended up getting an interview with Dean Graziosi. For those who don't know Dean Graziosi, he is a multi-best-selling author. He's spoken with Tony Robbins. He's one of the top of the top in our industry. And we had just gotten into a new podcast studio. We had just set up our camera. We were just doing the camera as a webcam for the first time. It was a bunch of things that we hadn't done before. Mm-hmm. We log on. Dean's in his mansion with his beautiful backdrop. And our camera, for some reason, Mark, didn't work. So it looked like an original iPhone that he was looking at us on. And it was absolutely terrible. And that was the quote unquote most successful guest we've ever had, but the footage was pretty much useless. So that was a really, really big mistake in retrospect. And honestly, I think I would say the biggest success, or the thing I'm most proud of, is the fact that we've done this organically. We don't pay for ads. We don't pay for listens. We don't pay to have guests on. We've done all of this organically, where we've actually built a sustainable business. Not if we run an ad and a bunch of people come, we'll be able to make money. That's not how it is for us. It's based on value. We do 7 episodes a week because we want to add as much value as humanly possible. That's the thing I think is my biggest success. We have built a company on sustainable value, and that feels good. That feels really good.
So that was actually something that was really kind of mind-blowing for me. You guys are doing 7 episodes. That's one a day, 7 episodes a week. Question 1. The topics, how do you generate topics for seven days a week? And 2, do you have a large staff that you work with? I mean, for me, I know that when I'm thinking of topics, particularly when it comes to something like authors, for example, there's the time to read. I try to read their material, and I don't know if I can do 7 a day. That seems to me to be quite a gargantuan effort. What is the process you guys go through to be able to hit that kind of regularity?
Yeah, so I am fully in charge of topics and titles. So I come up with all of our episodes as well as naming all of our episodes. And this is what I do. I literally always am thinking of what story can I take from this experience that I can bring to the podcast audience and then attach a lesson to. Over Christmas, I was literally thinking of, okay, what is this experience with family going to teach me that I can bring to the audience? That's really how I come up with topics. Now, the other understanding is I am very, very clear on our audience, right? Our audience is ambitious, usually women who want more courage, clarity, and confidence. That's really what they want. And they want more success in their relationships. But we have our community, based on the fact that I started it, we have a common core wound of low self-worth. So anytime we talk about boundaries, that's a really good topic for our audience because that's something that they're trying to strengthen. So it starts from a place of I understand the audience at a really, really, really deep level. So I'm already primed to look for topics, lessons, and stories that will land. And then I just spend a lot of time reflecting on, okay, what did I do last week? What questions did I get asked in interviews that I think I can bring to the audience? What was my date night with my wife like? What were our conversations like? Did we have any arguments that could have been avoided? I'm just trying to go in with, look, this is my life. This is what I'm experiencing. How can I deliver value to you based on that? That's how I come up with the topics.
So do you find you're putting a lot of your personal life out there? And do you have a certain level of comfort with that, that personal level? Or do you find that it's an almost necessity to put a certain amount of personal, letting those people into your inner circle, I guess, is maybe more the question.
I think that's important because at the end of the day, there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's many podcasts that talk about what we talk about, but I don't think there's many hosts that are willing to pull back the curtain on their lives. That's very important to me because when I was leaning into self-improvement and personal development, trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to learn, I had a lot of times, Mark, where I would look at somebody and say, I'm not like them, so I can't be like them. Now, if I can pull back the curtain and say, look, I am not perfect. I have been messing up the gym lately. I'm literally going to go to the gym right after this interview because that was my schedule for the day. But I've been messing up fitness. Our business has been growing a lot, but my relationship and the fitness has not been getting the attention that it needs to get. That's important for the audience to understand because it's going to humanize us and it's going to make them realize they're capable of more than they realize probably. So for me, it's a necessity. Now, if you're out there, it doesn't have to be that way. And again, we've done 1,200 episodes. So in the beginning, I wasn't willing to share as much as I am now, but I do realize that Alan, my co-host, and I, we are the brand. And if we're not willing to share our lives, it's going to be very hard for people to share their lives with us. So
with your co-host, that's another question I wanted to ask you. Does your format, when you're talking about format in podcasting, you get a lot of people who will sit there and are able to speak for 15, 20 minutes simply on their own. I don't know if I have that capability. I don't know if I'm that interesting a person. However, my question to you is a co-host format a premium type format? Is that a better way to go as opposed to a single, as like from your experience?
For me, I like it. I enjoy it a lot. But for most people, I think it becomes a challenge because when you have a co-host, you're splitting profits, you're splitting expenses, you're splitting quote unquote airtime. So how much do you want to talk, Mark, versus how much am I going to talk? It can be a real challenge for you unless the person that you're co-hosting with is very, very close to you. So Alan and I have been working together for 6 years basically now. And at this point, we've recorded so many episodes. I know what he's going to say before he says it. He knows what I'm going to say. I know when he's done. I know when he's pausing. We have a very, very good chemistry. I think it's more personal to, do you want to do the episodes yourself? And do you want to have a show that's heavily edited? Cool, that's something. Do you want to rely on a script and the same questions every time? Okay, cool, that's something too. I think it's personal. And I also think it depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to have a personal brand just about you, it's probably better to do it by yourself. But if you're really trying to build something that is going to stretch you, it helps to have somebody with you, because Alan is working right now. He's doing something different while I'm doing this, right? So Alan could be coaching while I'm doing this, and it allows us to split our time and therefore split our impact. So I don't think it's really one way is better than the other. I think one way might be better than the other for you, depending on how you want to do it.
So I know we're kind of running up against the clock for you. I don't want to take much of your time, and I appreciate the time you're giving me.
Of course.
So I'm gonna ask you this, I guess, maybe a closing question. What's the next chapter of your story as far as podcasting is concerned, and what do you suggest for those people who are starting out, moving through the podcasting life, to get them to the point where you are? I know you've talked about consistency. You've talked about, I guess niching, if you want to call it that. You've talked about giving of yourself. But is there one piece of that secret sauce that you may have to help people such as myself who are moving that direction to get where you are, maybe a little sooner?
Man, unfortunately, I think the secret sauce is the stuff that people don't necessarily want to hear. I always say the results you want are hidden in the work that you don't. This is probably the secret sauce. You have to take it way more seriously than you are. That's probably what it is. Like, if you're missing episodes, you're losing, and you're not taking it as seriously as you should be. If you're not posting on social media every day, if you're not building connections with your audience, if you're not really trying to get better as a speaker, as titling your episodes, as getting better guests, if you're not trying to improve a little bit every day, you're not doing as much as you could. That's what I would say. I think it should be an obsession. If you want to get somewhere faster, you become more obsessed with it and you focus on it more and you put more time into it. I think that's the most beneficial advice I could give, honestly. And this, I would say this too. Treat your podcast like a business long before it is one. That's one of the reasons a lot of us aren't winning, is because we don't treat it like a podcast, like a business. We treat it like a hobby, right? It's fun. It's my passion project. I love that. But until you start pouring into it, it's not going to really be able to pour back to you. And honestly, I think, Mark, for us, I want to do more speaking around podcasting this year. I have been holding off on that just so we can build a lot of momentum, but that's it now. The team's reaching out for me to get on stages for podcasts, and I'm going down to Florida in a couple months to attend an event, maybe speak there. So that's really the next step. Is, look, I've done a lot in this industry, and I've done 1,200 episodes, and I've been on a bunch of others. I think I'm ready. I've probably overcooked the turkey, but I think I'm ready to start talking more about podcasting, because it's my favorite thing in the world to talk about, and I do think I know a good amount at this point.
So you've reached a level of confidence that you're comfortable with stepping forward and saying, hey, here I am. Let me show you what I can do. Excellent.
It took a long time, longer than I expected. 1,200 episodes. I mean, you think I'd have most of it figured out by now, but there's always lessons, and I still have occasional imposter syndrome. Even before interviews, I get that. So I think that's important to throw out there. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not the most confident human being on the face of the earth. I've just done this many times, and I still have my doubts.
Well, 1,200 episodes, I think, is something that you should be patting your back on.
Thank you.
Patting yourself on the back with. That to me is a goal that I'm heading towards. Maybe not in the same fashion, but speaking with you has been quite a worthwhile thing. It's given me some direction. I hope it's given our listeners some direction as well too, and helping them with the reality of what podcasting is all about. I think a lot of us get into things thinking it's going to be a quick fix, right? You get a lot of people looking for that quick dollar, and they're in it 1 minute and they're out of it the next, right? There's not staying power. I know for me, I've owned a number of companies in my lifetime, and each one I've tried to see it to its fruition, and to a point where I say that, okay, it's run its course, right? Yeah. So I think that's a thing with this as well too. Kevin, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope 2023 will be amazing for you and your team. And I hope we can connect again and speak and maybe in 6 months down the line, I'll connect with you and kind of give you an update as to what's going on. We can have you back on the show.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for having me. I hope 2023 is fruitful for you as well. I'm sure it will be, and I appreciate you having me on and going deep on podcasting.
Thank you very much, sir. Good to see you.